This video is about absolute value inequalities. I'm actually going to record this as two videos. I'm going to do in this video just an explanation of the steps, and then I'm going to do a separate video where I go through 3 or 4 examples with you. I think I have a better way of recording that video that would allow you to see more of my process. So when you finish this video, there is going to be a second video to watch. Here are two inequalities. Remember, inequality means just less than or greater than. So two inequalities that both have an absolute value sign in them. And they're very similar, but what I want to do is put them side by side so that we can see what the similarities are and what the differences are. Every absolute value inequality can be written as a compound inequality. Remember, a compound inequality is two inequalities that use either the word and or the word or. So when you see an absolute value that's less than, that's going to turn into a compound inequality using the word and. So less than makes and. If it's an absolute value that's greater, that uses the word or. Greater or. That's the main difference between these two inequalities. From there, you split up the inequality the same way that you would split up an absolute value equation, and that's why we reviewed absolute value equations for the past few days. So when you, we'll do this one first, you split up this inequality into two parts. First, you write an inequality where you change the inequality symbol, and you change the sign of the answer. So you changed from less than to greater than, and you changed the positive to negative. On the other one, you keep everything the same. So you're keeping the less than sign and you're keeping the positive 7. You can rewrite this. Oh, sorry, you connect it with the word and. You can rewrite it as in a string like this. You've seen that before. We've done that several different times. And inequalities can always be rewritten that way. And then you know how to make the graph. You would graph by putting open circles on -7 and +7 and connecting those in between. Okay, so the graph at the end here is shows all the numbers whose absolute value are less than 7, which is what we started with. If you think of any number whose absolute value is less than 7, it's part of the shaded in portion of the number line here. This one on the right hand side follows the same process, but you'll end with a different answer since you're starting with a different problem. So you're going to again split up the inequality. On the left hand side, you'll change greater than to a less than, and you'll change +7 to -7. On the right hand side, you keep them both the same. So we'll just say x is greater than 7. And we're connecting these with the word or. Remember that or inequalities can't be rewritten the way that and inequalities can. So we'll go straight to the graph here. We're again going to put open circles on -7 and +7, but this time, since it's an or graph, the solutions are on the outsides, okay, going all the way to -infinity and +infinity. And so here, if you can think of any number whose absolute value is bigger than 7, then it's going to be one of the numbers that is shaded in on this graph. It's either going to be bigger than 7 or smaller than -7 in order for its absolute value to be greater than 7. So this is a basic overview of how to write and graph absolute value inequalities, the basic type. But you will also see absolute value inequalities that need to be solved, where you don't have x by itself yet. We're going to do several examples of those, but first I want to just walk you through the steps. There are 4 steps. I'm going to bring them up here, and then I'll ask you to copy them onto your notes page, and I'll refer to them as we go through the examples. The first step is to get the absolute value by itself. If you remember when we did absolute value equations, we talked about the absolute value being like the jail bars, and then anything outside the absolute value was the prison guard. And we said you have to get rid of the prison guard before you can break out of the jail cell. And so that's what I'm talking about here, is getting rid of that prison guard, taking away anything outside of the absolute value. Then you decide if it's an and or an or. You decide that based on whether the absolute value is less than or greater than, like I described in the top part of your notes page. After you make that decision, then you split the inequality apart, just like we did a moment ago, and solve each one. So you're going to end up with two inequalities. You solve each one separately, and then you'd be ready to make your graph. So those are the 4 basic steps. Get those copied down, and then exit or end this video, start the next video, and we'll do a bunch of examples together.